Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumey, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder and CEO of Bun Mee, Denise Tran. Denise, how are you today?
Hi, Frank. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for being on. Denise, I just kind of cracked up when I heard the name. I just love the name Bun Mee. Where did you come up with that?
Well, I love puns. And bun mee is the Vietnamese word for bread.
Okay.
And at the time that we launched our company and I launched this brand, what was frustrating to me back then, and this is, just imagine, this is back in 2010, so about 15 years ago. People couldn't pronounce bun mee properly. And that was so frustrating to me. They would say bun mee because it's spelled B-A-N-H and there's a silent H.
Okay.
And it would be like this bun mee and I was like, no, like you're saying it wrong. And so I just thought, it's going to be an educational lesson here. Call it bun mee, how it's supposed to sound. And it's a perfect pun also, and it's cute, and it's fun to say, and it's memorable, and it rolls off the tongue. So that was just an immediate, aha, this serves its purpose. To teach people, and it's a fun thing to say.
It is. All right, so Bun Mee is Vietnamese fast casual. Best way to describe your business?
Gourmet.
Gourmet. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. Okay. So why don't you tell the audience, tell us about how this whole thing started.
Right. So the context is we're back in 2009. I'm living in New York City. I had a major life moment. My father had just passed away. I'm very close to him. I'm 30 years old at the time, and I was practicing law. And I had one of those moments where I'm like, Dad just passed away. This is major. Life is short. Am I doing what I love? Am I filling my purpose? Is this really what, is this what life is all about? I'm an immigrant. Came here when I was very young, a baby from Vietnam. And, as an immigrant story, success meant be a doctor or a lawyer, you just make it, making it was that. And so I did all the things I was supposed to do up until that point, but doing it for other people. For my parents, for others, and not for me. So my dad's passing was just that moment for me that really crystallized for me. Am I living my purpose? And so I wanted to stop and take a moment, figure out what I really wanted to do, curate my life. I had just his last wish for me was to take his ashes back to Vietnam. So I go on this journey for 2 weeks back to Vietnam, and unbeknownst to me, not thinking I'm going to open a restaurant by any means, I was just wanting to reconnect to a country that my father loved, but I didn't know, and I didn't have a connection with it. I felt very American. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go on this trip solo and really discover the country my father loved and fought for and wanted to die there and bring his ashes back. And so I did this solo journey from Ho Chi Minh to Hanoi. And along the way, when you travel solo, you have a lot of moments to yourself. And I would eat at these street stalls along the way. And, and the street food culture in Vietnam is bustling and vibrant and so interesting. And I would sit there and I would have the most amazing noodle bowl or, rice noodle dishes and bun mee dishes and all these such interesting food items that I had
Mm-hmm.
never had in the US. And I would tell these vendors, I was like, can you just close your shop for one day? I will pay whatever it costs that you would be selling. It was usually like $50 or, whatever. And I'd be like, I just want to hear your stories. And I just wanted to connect. So they would, I mean, and these are, a lot of them are women and no one cared about their story, like they were kind of the bottom of the totem pole in terms of food vending and being in the food world, right? This was street food, the most
Right.
pedestrian food. And so I think for them, many of them really liked that someone cared. And so anyway, I just had these moments where I was hearing stories, learning these traditions and learning about recipes and just kind of letting that all sink in for me in a way
Mm-hmm.
that was more about connecting than anything else. So I go back to New York. I'm living in New York and I'm like, I don't want to practice law. Like, this is not what I want to do. It's not my passion. And so I have this, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next. And I had this very light bulb moment. I'm at a porchetta sandwich shop in the Village, very artisan. That's all they did. I go into this shop. I'm engaged at this point to my fiance. And I'm like, he knew I was looking for something else.
Okay.
I'm in this shop. I have this light bulb moment. It's as if the universe, God, whatever you call it, just opened a portal to my future and said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do this for Vietnamese sandwiches. And if you don't know, Vietnamese sandwich is like our hamburger, right?
Okay.
This is like fast food. It's like our hamburger. People stroll up in a scooter, grab it to go, eat it on the go. It's portable. It's our hamburger. And I'm like, why is this not on every corner? Like, this is so good. Like, it's the only Asian sandwich in the format that we Americans know, because it's like, there's no Asian sandwich that exists. That we have buns, but there's no Asian sandwich. Vietnam had a sandwich because it was the French that brought the baguettes, and they had this perfect fusion item that was just not explored at the time. So at this
Wow.
moment, you're thinking like, it's like, you got to go find it. People couldn't even pronounce it. It was very mom and pop, very fragmented. You got to go to Chinatown, Saigon, town,
Right.
whatever. It wasn't and it wasn't customer service oriented, and it wasn't gourmet. It wasn't chef driven. It wasn't interesting. It wasn't branded. There's just so many things it wasn't at the time.
Right. It was just crazy.
It's crazy. And I'm like, why is there no one doing it in the way that like I think would be so great? And I think it's the perfect crossover food item, ethnic
Mhm.
food item, right? I mean, Americans love sandwiches. It's like, it just didn't have a niche of its own or an identity.
Right.
And so for me, the portal that I was seeing was, Denise, you're going to do this. You're going to leave law and you're going to bring this and make it accessible to mainstream America in the way that you're envisioning. And so that was my purpose. And I just
Mhm.
got it that day. And it was crazy because I called my best friend and I'm like, I leave this restaurant. I call my best friend. I'm like, I know exactly what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to open a bun mee shop. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you talking about? You're not a chef. You have no restaurant experience. You are a lawyer, like,
Right.
where do you even start? What do you even begin? Like, this is not so I just I knew it in my gut. I just knew this is what I meant to do. And that's how it all started.
Well, first of all, it's super courageous of you to leave your law practice because you worked so
Or
hard to get
crazy.
there. Yeah, or crazy, or maybe a little bit of both, but you had put such an effort in making sure that this career happened. I know what it takes, right, to go through law school and getting a job, and you were 30 years old at the time. So I'm just curious to know, like, what do you think your dad would have said at the time when you were 30 years old? If he had been alive at that moment, you said, Dad, I'm going to leave law and going to open up a Vietnamese gourmet shop.
Yeah, in honor of my dad, sorry, I just get so emotional when I talk about my dad.
Sure.
My dad is just not your typical Asian dad. My dad was the girl dad before girl
Oh,
dads were a thing. My dad, I mean, all the courage that I have to do what I do came from my dad. He supports me in everything I do. My mom is more traditional. She's the one that's like, do the safe thing. But my dad was always like, you can do this.
aw.
Even when I was 5 or 10, or, before it was culturally in our culture, it was just about like, marrying the right guy and just doing all that. But my dad was always that person that was my cheerleader. So in honor of him, I think if I think he's really happy for me, I think with any tragic story, it allows a pivot. And if you're able to use that to light you up and light some fire, I think he had that for me. He's there. And I think
Oh
he's
yeah.
rooting me on for sure.
That is amazing. That is absolutely what an incredible inspiration and how life can change on a dime. And for
Right.
you, you took, the tragedy, but you were paying such great tribute to your dad and your willingness to obviously go back to Vietnam and try to appreciate what he appreciated, but then you changed your entire life, your professional career as a result of that is a story I've never heard anything like that before. It is just an incredible inspiration, and you evidently, I mean, you've done really well. I mean, you've got 5 locations, and we could talk about all the numbers and everything and what you've done, but I think what's most incredibly just inspiring is the how you did this. So let's go back to that time. So you leave the law practice. What do you do next? You don't know anything about restaurants.
But what I do know, because I know how to research. So I've always been a tinkerer and a hustler in the good ways. I was always that person that was always, doing things on the side. Like, I bought my first property when I was in my to early 20s because so I owned a condo. I was always doing things on the side. I was practicing law and real estate developing, like I was always that person. I was always finding things to do. And so for me, I just knew that, okay, I found it to be a challenge, Frank. Like, I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I'm slightly delusional because I'm like, the dream is I want to be a national brand. I want to do that. And so, but my first step was, I'm going to research this and I'm going to set up crucial questions along the way that will either be a red flag or a green flag. And if the green flag keeps answering yes, then I will keep continuing to move forward. So my first step was, let me see what the landscape looks like, right? So I start researching the bun mee landscape. Like, let me see what folks are doing, So I would check out all the places in New York City at the time. Then I would do research online to check out the national scene. So I was doing a lot of the homework around understanding, is this an opportunity? Does this make sense? Is America ready for this? So my first green light for me, and I really believe in, again, I'm a intuitive gut feel type person and I look for signs. My first sign for me as I'm researching whether this is a viable idea is New York Times named Bun Mee the sandwich of the year.
Wow, that's
And this
amazing.
was 3 months after I started, like, the light bulb moment. 3 months after light bulb moment, New York Times. And this is before, mind you, my friends couldn't even pronounce bun me. Like, they didn't know what I'm doing. They're like, she's crazy. She's crazy. And my fiance was like, okay, she's off in her own little world. Just let her figure this out. It'll probably be a new idea next week, that kind of thing. Right. But New York Times named it Bun Mee of the Year before it was on the menu of restaurants and things like that. And so I was like, wow, okay, I'm onto something. Like, this is New York Times named it. They're usually kind of ahead on the food side. And so it was almost me thinking, okay, the universe is saying go, keep going, like keep looking, keep pulling at that, ball of yarn, and
Mhm.
keep going at it. So that was my first sign that I just knew that I'm onto something. And and then the market, we ended up moving to San Francisco because my ex is I'm sorry, my fiance is in the finance world. So we moved to San Francisco. So now we're 2010 in San Francisco. And my next big move was I cold called a bunch of renowned restaurant consulting firms because I knew I didn't have experience. And what I understand about not having experience is you can hire it, you
Uh-huh.
can bring it on board, you can pay for it, consult for it, get consultants for it. So I was like, okay, I have this idea. I have no idea how to set up a restaurant. So I'm going to see if I can get someone to help me consult. So I kept hearing this name out there in, the Culinary Edge. Founder is Aaron Novoshen. He's the CEO and founder of Starbird. You might have heard Starbird. It's doing big things right now. But I cold called them at the time and I was like, hey, I have this idea, and they're renowned. They're national,
Okay.
big national brands, right? And I just had this idea and I cold called them and I was like, hey, I have this idea. I want to do bun mee and this is how I want to do it. I'm a lawyer. I don't know the first thing. I'm a home cook. I know
Hmm.
what's good. But I don't know how to set up a kitchen. I don't know how to set it up in a way that's scalable. Um, so the funny story is they call and they're like, okay, yeah, we're really expensive. I was like, humor me. Tell me how much it is. I just want to know. They told me and I'm like, okay, yeah, thank you. You're too much. I can't afford you. But what's fun was they called me back a week later and they're like, Denise, Aaron loves bun mee sandwiches and he would like to talk to you. He thinks your idea is timely. And that was my validation. If Aaron thinks my idea is timely, I'm on to something. So they
Hmm.
called me into their office. I'm coming in there just a little delusional, very optimistic. And I was in a boardroom with all their chefs and all their folks that know everything about fast casual and whatever. And I pitched the idea. Lo and behold, Aaron decided, and I'm going to do this for you for some equity in your business.
Wow.
So that was kind of the biggest move that just really propelled me almost from just a person with a dream researching to now I've got something. Now I'm going to
Mhm.
go and find a location. I've just tapped into this great resource of people that know what they're doing, completely mitigated my risks significantly. And that's kind of how we started.
That's amazing. There's such great benefit to being naive. People look at it as a weakness, but I think it's a huge strength. I know it was for me as well, because when we don't know all of the risks sometimes and
Mhm.
we go in naive, ignorance can be bliss.
Ignorance is bliss, right? You know what? What I love about not knowing how it's supposed to be done is you don't do anything traditionally. You just you go by gut feel. You go by, well, this makes sense. It's common sense. I'll do this, and so you're not put in a box of like, well, I probably shouldn't cold call these people because they're really important and they're really
Hmm.
expensive, and
You didn't have any fear.
I'm not ready to talk to them. I just didn't know any better. It
Right.
just was common sense for me to do. Mind you, I got turned down by some folks. But for me, I was like, I'm just going to keep calling until someone listens to me. Someone gives me a chance. Someone gives me whatever. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't
Right.
have any fear. And I didn't know that's not how you do things. So I think not knowing how you're supposed to do things is also a gift because
Absolutely.
you do things maybe in a more innovative, out of the box way. It puts you in a great position that you might not have been if you censored yourself. yourself.
Sure. So what was life like when you first opened the first shop?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was scary, right?
And
It
where
was.
was this, by the way? Where was
So
the
we
first shop?
opened our first shop 2011, April 1st, by the way, which April
Okay.
Fool's Day,
April
which
Fool's Day.
it's actually intentional because I kind of have a little sense of humor about what I'm doing because the reason we were so close, I'm like, I'm going to open on April Fool's Day only because it's kind of comical. Like I don't
Right.
have restaurant experience. I'm going to go do this. And so anyway, so we opened April Fool's Day, 2011, and um the we immediately had lines out the door. I
Oh
mean,
my goodness, that's
yeah,
amazing. And where was this
this
exactly?
is Pacific Heights, San Francisco, Pacific Heights neighborhood on Fillmore Street. Kind of very iconic, known main street. But mind you, before we opened, when we were working on construction in the store, we had our we had our windows covered and I was in the shop working and I could hear people like walk by and they saw our sign and they're like, Bun Mee? What is this?
Mhm.
And so I was like, holy cow. Like, I'm in like Pacific Heights, primarily white neighborhood, very affluent, not a lot of Vietnamese. And I'm taking a big risk. I'm taking a gamble. Or they don't even know what a bun mee is. Like I'm really putting myself out there. This is prime real estate, putting myself out there. And so I was like, am I in the right place? Like, this is so scary. So for me, opening was just just that feeling, just being scared and like, how is this going to go? Lines out the door the first day. It was insane. We beat all our projections. We ran out of bread midday. We kept having, and at the time I was just such a tr- purist. And I was like, I need to get bread from San Jose in the bakery from this baker. And so I would drive an hour to San Jose, get bread and drive
Oh,
back. We would put up a sign that said, we're closing for an hour and a half.
well, I go get bread. You're such a founder. That's such a founder thing to do, by the way.
We'll be back. We'll be back. We're closing. We'll be back. And so we were doing like a few days. We had this small walk-in. We couldn't fit food in the walk-in. Like it was just kind of this such an unexpected surprise. And so it
Right.
was a lot of hustle, a lot of grit, a lot of trying to figure things out on the fly. It's just a whirlwind, of just and a huge learning curve because I'm not used to this. I came from law where I had an assistant, get me coffee. Like I would, so I'm not used to like, running around, being in the kitchen, getting getting dirty, smelling like fries,
Right.
but I just rolled up my sleeves and I was just going to do whatever it took. And
Mhm.
so those first days, first weeks, first months was a huge learning curve, long hours, long days, staying late shifts, just working morning to night and just learning as much as I could, making sure that I was on top of things. It was wild. It was wild.
Yeah. Well, when you love what you do, the hours don't even matter. Like you don't even count the hours, right? You just do.
Exactly.
Was there a pivotal moment, and maybe it might not even been the line out the door, but was there a moment in time where you were like, I'm really onto something here?
Yeah, I think, I knew I was onto something probably. I mean, our first year, we did a million and 1.5 million in sales our
Wow.
first year
That's
in like
incredible.
under 1,000 square foot, right?
Okay.
I mean, like just huge. Didn't expect it, And so I was like, okay, this is, and we made it on every best list. We were on San Francisco's best list for our sandwich. We had Patricia Unterman, which is a very renowned food critic, came into our shop to check out our food. Like
Oh
we
boy.
were critically reviewed, right? And so then we made it on, fast casuals, 100 mover shaker. I didn't even know what that was. I had no idea what that was. I didn't, they called and emailed me and I'm like, I don't know what this is. I was new to the industry. I don't know how we got got noticed. We had one store, and we would get people that would come in and give me business cards to say, if you're expanding, I want to invest. We had people doing R&D in our shop, just coming in R&Ding our shop.
Wow.
And we had so it was just press and being on best lists and you know getting noticed on fast casuals list, which is a national publication, national reach that I didn't know about. And so I knew that, and folks would come in, I won't name them, but notable CEOs and founders of brands that we know would come
Well,
into.
you're in the Bay Area, so I'm sure we would know who they are.
Right, right. And they came in, they're like, okay, you got to do something about this. You need to expand. You need to, let's partner, like private equity firms calling me. So it was the culmination, I guess. There was not one moment, but it was just a series of things that were happening that told me, hey, I'm onto something. I'm creating something special. It's resonating. And so this was, within a year and a half of our opening, all this just kind of was happening, and it was all generic and I'm not generic, organic kind of exposure. We have not marketed. We've spent no money on marketing.
Wow. That's amazing. Denise, when did you open your second location?
So we opened our second location 2013 because we were getting so much catering from downtown San Francisco financial district. And Frank, I have a funny story. So I used to, because I love to do things cute and on brand. So I was delivering in Mini Coopers. At first, I wanted to deliver on scooters, but liability and not, you can't carry boxes on scooters. But anyway, I was delivering in a red Mini Cooper for Bun Mee, and we were getting orders for like 1,000 people, or 500 people.
Wow.
Going to downtown San Francisco, and we were about 2 miles away, but it's city miles, so it's really a lot of traffic. And one day we were, city streets are, San Francisco is very hilly. One day, and I was delivering at the time, I was delivery girl, so I was still working on. I was delivering, and one
This
day
is the same person, by the way, who had an assistant getting her Starbucks coffee as an attorney, is now driving around in a Mini.
Now I'm driving a Mini Cooper, delivering your sandwiches, and we had a huge order, and we were stuffing our Mini Cooper with all these boxes and all that. And we were up on a hill in San Francisco, and the back of my hatchback opened up, sandwiches rolled out. Like, it was just this mayhem. And food was coming out of my trunk, and I was like, oh my God, this is stressful. And so we're like, we need to open a store in financial district to meet that demand. So that's how our second location opened up in 2014.
Okay.
And that's how we started in 2014. That was our second restaurant. A lot of office catering. We catered to hundreds of companies downtown, and we're able to cater up to 1,000 people, all sizes. We have delivery vans now. We got it down now, and I have a delivery guy.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Anymore.
Okay. First of all, what is the most popular item on the menu?
Yeah. So the most popular item, the two sandwiches that are most popular is our lemongrass pork bun mee and our 5-spice chicken bun mee.
Okay.
My personal favorite is the steak bun mee, which is kind of a play on a French dip. So there's a dip that you have. It's a pho broth, and it's like a play on pho. So it has like Vietnamese pho flavors in the sandwich. So I love that. But we have, we've worked on our menu to the point where we've honed it down so that every item is a favorite for somebody, that it's a high bestseller in so many ways. And so we've fine-tuned it, so it's a very efficient and very effective menu now.
That's smart.
But those are still our top. The chicken pho, folks love. My mom's recipe. Really, really, it's a bestseller at the airport too.
Well, that's the other thing. So you've got 5 locations now. 2 are in the airport. What prompted you to go into the airport, and how's that gone for you?
I got the idea to go to the airport when one lady who operates at the airport, and I give her credit for it, she really inspires me. She came to my shop and she ate at my shop, and she was like, we started talking, and she's like, I've operated airports this whole time. I closed all my city street stores. I'm primarily at the airport now. I
Oh,
love it. You should consider it. And I was like, wow, I should do that. And it was just, again, very organic conversation. And and for me, it made total sense because I wanted, again, to be a national brand and get out of the Bay Area. And I thought, well, this is perfect because one, the airport's the gateway. So many people are traveling, not just locals, but obviously tourists and business travelers from all over the world, all over the country. And this is a great way for me to be at an airport that's also known for being a foodie airport, known for their food, and being that gateway to not only serve this great food to so many people at the airport in a non-traditional setting, but also, there's a monopoly there, right? There's not, people are, don't have a lot of options there, but also it's to market our brand, expose our name, expose our brand to so many people. And that's how I was getting after that request to franchise, because people were there and they were like, well, I want a bun mee in San Diego. Have you thought about, I live in, I mean, Idaho, I live in Las Vegas. Why you're not there? Why don't you come? So every move has been just kind of this organic growth, people making suggestions, about what they'd like to see. And it's just understanding your customer and hearing what they're asking and saying. It's helped us make our most important decisions.
right, right. Denise, so the idea to franchise, was that your idea or did that come from just customers coming in?
It was a combination. Initially, I wanted to just do corporate owned stores. I thought about raising money and
Hmm.
doing corporate owned stores only because I obviously, I want to control things. I want to make sure that I have maximum control of the brand and the experience. While I was figuring that decision out, I pivoted to a hybrid model, which is to continue to grow corporate stores, but also grow franchise locations, because what I was seeing during my research was a lot of brands that were corporate owned grew too much too fast.
Right.
Um, they were in locations that were that almost cannibalized their good locations,
Mm,
because you don't have the expertise sometimes in markets that maybe a local operator would have, right? And I was like, okay, I decided to choose a hybrid model because I want to leverage that person, that entrepreneur on the ground, that's president of their Rotary Club, that's in the community, that loves bun mee, that can be an advocate for bun mee, and that's going to have ownership of bun mee in an area that maybe I wouldn't go to because I don't really know it and I
hmm.
don't have the strengths. And so I want to pick markets that I know and I feel really good about, like, just for me, because I like to pick all my locations personally. I
Okay.
don't like to just listen to a realtor or broker to tell me this is good or not, just put it anywhere. Like, for me, I'm very hands-on with finding locations. It's the most important decision you can make, right? When you open a
Sure.
store. So I realize I'm going to, and I, again, gut feel, instinct feel, if I don't know that city, I don't know that area, I'd rather just franchise it out because
Yeah.
I trust that that entrepreneur knows it every nook and cranny more than I do. They know people walk on that street, but not
Hmm.
that street.
Hmm.
Show up on that neighborhood, that corner, but not that. Like, they know these things. I don't know that. And so for me, I want to grow. I want to grow. And I think franchising will help me grow and meet my model, but I want to leverage that expertise as well. So we want to do a hybrid growth model so that we mitigate our risk.
Smart. That's fair enough. So, Denise, where are you looking to expand? Are you looking to still stay in the, Northern California, or are you open to franchising outside of California?
Right. So right now we are open to all the non-registered states right now. We're registering in California and New York. So that's in the works. So we're open on the franchise side. We are open for business.
Awesome. What's the investment range to open one location?
The investment range on the low end would be in the mid 400s. And then on the high end would be a little over $1 million, because if you're building a non-traditional location where you need to use union laborers in a specialized location that requires that, then obviously union contracts and all that is going to increase that number significantly. So that for me is like at an airport, you know. But street side, you're looking at more of the lower end.
Denise, what do you think is the kind of person that's really going to thrive in your franchise system?
I think the person that's going to thrive is someone who obviously the easiest, one is you gotta love people. You gotta love food.
Hmm.
You gotta be okay with working in a system. If you have dreams to be a chef and you have dreams to create, your own food and, have that, then obviously franchising is not for you.
Right.
But if you're someone, if you're tired of your corporate job, you want to, you love food, you're that person that takes food photos when you're eating out, and you're someone that loves the hospitality aspect of it and you want to do something on your own and you see the vision of what Bun Mee is about and what we're trying to do is we're wanting to put Vietnamese fast casual on the map, and that resonates with you
Hmm.
and you love what we do, then you're the right candidate.
That's awesome. I think that you've done something so special here, and I love the backstory. This is part of your legacy, and you've really done such a justice to paying homage to your dad and to his country. And I'm curious to know about legacy wise. Where do you hope to take this, and how do you think this is going to impact your legacy and your brand?
Yeah, when I think about legacy, there's two things that resonates with me. When I have a son, when I think of legacy, I think of my son. He's 10 years old. When I came to the US, I was living in New Orleans. I was the only Vietnamese, only Asian in my school. I got made fun of for being Vietnamese. I got made fun of for eating food that didn't smell right, didn't look right. I was really ashamed of being different. And now fast forward, my son gets to grow up in an environment where he's so proud to be Vietnamese. He loves to be different. He's so proud that I'm putting Vietnamese food out there and making an impact in the way that it's like I'm educating people through food. I have someone I admire. He's sort of a mentor of mine. His name is Andrew Lee. He's the founder of Sugar Bowl Bakery, which is a very large bakery. He's Vietnamese, and I look up to him. And he told me one day, because I'm in this and I'm making sandwiches, making food, not thinking much about what I'm doing other than this is my passion. But he told me something that really resonated with me with respect to legacy. And he said, Denise, what you're doing is that you are part of the Vietnamese immigrant story in America. We're
Yeah.
celebrating 50 years now since the end of the war. And 50 years that Vietnamese have come to the US and have made an impact in this country. And he says, now you are part of telling that story for us through food, through what you're doing, because the representation that you put forth in the food that you're making, seeing it at the airport, seeing it in Pacific Heights, seeing it in places that resonates and is front and center for so many Americans, gives validation that, our food is accepted and loved. And all we want is validation. We want representation. We want to have our food out there. And so legacy for me is sharing that and educating people. And hopefully through doing that, I've opened people's minds and taste buds to something different, and maybe they'll try something else. And so that's what's meaningful to me. And it's coming from a girl who is ashamed to share my food at lunchtime. And now I'm putting it out there And being so proud of it is a legacy that I hope I can inspire others to do the same.
Well, you should be very proud, and you've gotten the validation. You shared with us just some incredible awards. If I may share, I understand you were named on the Fast Casual Top 25 Executives in 2025. Bun Mee was named on Fast Casual's Top 100 Movers, not only in 2013, but now in 2025. I'm waiting to find out what number we're coming in at, right? And also Bloomberg named Bun Mee as one of the top airport restaurants in the world. That's validation.
That feels good.
It should. Denise, if someone was interested in learning more about Bun Mee and becoming a franchise owner, where would they go?
Our website. All our information is on our website, www.bunmee.co. All the information's there. And, just go on the website and you'll find us.
Awesome. All right, I got one last question for you. I always end every podcast called the Franchise Tip Jar, because the franchise community and industry is so generous at sharing information. So I want to pose this question to you. If a friend came to you that was interested in becoming a franchisee of another brand, what would be a piece of advice you'd give them to make sure they're making the right decision for themselves?
Right. First and foremost, for any brand, I want them to really see, it's not just about, I really love this. Do your homework, really understand if there's a place in your town, in your market for this brand. So do your background research and understanding, does this concept fit into the area that I want? Is there a need? Am I serving a need? Is it already been served? And if it is already served, is this brand doing something different? Right? So just start off with that first. Just because you're excited doesn't mean that it would work. So definitely work with that. And then also, connecting to the brand and understanding the support system that they have, what that support looks like for you. Do your homework on talking to other franchisees in the network, but really connecting to the folks behind that brand. I think there's brands out there that are really about supporting and really caring about franchisee development and growth, and they care about the success of their franchisee. And then there's franchisors that just want to grow as fast as possible. And they may not care so much about any particular individual franchisee's growth. So I think really thinking about where, what that brand is about and what their long-term strategy is and whether they really care about how you're growing is, I think, that piece of advice that I would give.
That's great advice, because you can really sniff that out based on the training and support that they offer and how specific they are and to what level that they train and support their franchise owners, whether they're really there for their success or, like you said, or they're there just to, grow and open new locations and moving on. So
yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is if they are really careful and selective about choosing you, then you'll know, okay, they care about how their brand is being treated. Now, if they're just accepting and saying yes to, anyone that can write a check, they're just trying to grow really fast, and so they may not have, they may have a different agenda. They may not be able to support you as well as if someone that's, a little bit picky. If they're picky and they're particular, there's a reason. They care. And you want to be a part of a brand that cares.
Well said. Denise, thanks so much for being on the show. I wish you all the best, continued success with Bun Mee. I'm looking forward to seeing the expansion of your business throughout the country.
Thank you so much, Frank.
Thanks for being on. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.